alaikum, everybody. It's a treat to be here, and I'm very privileged to follow after such great people who've given you a little bit of an idea of how much farmers are suffering from climate change at this point. This is a global phenomenon. There's a smorgasbord of nomenclature that's used for it. It's climateflation, heatflation, saltflation. All over the world, we have dropping yields and crops being destroyed by a series of climate events. And this is, of course, happening in Pakistan as well. In fact, the Syrian civil war, which recently led to finally the ouster of the Assad regime, was also kickstarted by a climate-induced drought. And this is very, very dangerous because we're headed towards suddenly something can happen that can just tip the scales for entire countries to erupt, God forbid. And that's why tackling this is crucial. And the word apocalyptic was used a few times during this conference. And while this is true, I will hopefully not be a bearer of more bad news, but rather one of hope today, because using techniques and tools of regenerative agriculture, which is my profession and what I've been doing for the past 8 to 9 years, we have the potential to realize the vision, as the Honorable Kazim Saab said here, which is to make Pakistan an agricultural superpower. We can dramatically enhance yields while doing it in a way, shape, and form that is in harmony with nature, as His Excellency Malik Amin Saab just mentioned, because that is, at the end of the day, what we need. And agriculture is something that gives us a lot of hope if we do it right, because it can become a tool not just of adaptation, but also of reversing climate change and drawing down excess carbon if we do it the right way. And we can draw down the carbon in soils, we can draw it down in trees and shrubs around farming systems, so there's enormous potential. The Honorable Tibana Saab mentioned store, baby, store, and one of the greatest sources or technologies of storing water is actually soil carbon. For every 1% of organic matter that we increase in our soils, we have the capacity to store 27,000 gallons of water. And there are farmers, I'm going to mention, we were talking about yields, so I'll start with that. The world record holder for corn yields is an American farmer named Russell Hendrick, and his yields are mind-bogglingly high. The highest yield in Pakistan for corn is around 110 mons or so. Correct me if I'm wrong. If a farmer gets that, he's jumping up and down with joy. So Russell Hendrick's yields are in the range of about 355 mons per acre. He started in 2012 with soil that had 1.7% carbon, and by 2024 that amount had reached 8.2% carbon. So carbon is really the store of wealth of a farmer if we enact systems and tools that build it in our soils. Next up, I'd like to talk a little bit about nutrient density, because we have a food and nutritional security crisis all over the world. And there are emerging studies that showcase that food that is grown regeneratively has higher nutrients. In fact, I was reading a study out of Citrus Grove in Florida, where regeneratively grown citrus had 8 times higher nutrients, including antioxidants, vitamin C, etc. So the power of enhancing the nutritional profile of vital micronutrients and other phenolic compounds, stuff that are essential for human existence and health, can be dramatically up-leveled when we do regenerative agriculture right. Now, what is regenerative agriculture? It is a very broad brushstroke term. It's like saying renewable energy, but what type of renewable energy, right? So regen ag is an umbrella term, carries within it a number of tools and techniques. On our farming system, we're privileged we take a very integrative and expansive view. So we do deploy many, perhaps all the known, including cutting edge and bleeding edge tools out there. Recently, we conducted a study, for example, I'll get to that in fact. So we have, we do large scale fungally dominant composts. We do large scale vermicomposting, biochar we've been doing since 2017. Recently, Google announced the purchase of biochar credits. In fact, Malik Saab and I were talking about this the other day, which is, the largest deal of its kind in the world with an Indian company called Varaha, and that's for biochar-based sequestration, because biochar has enormous permanence and it builds soil carbon, it gives space for nutrient and water storage within soils, so it tackles a lot of issues, and it stays in the soil for thousands of years without degrading, so that it has permanence. So we deploy a bunch of those techniques. We do cover cropping, minimum and no tillage, high efficiency irrigation systems, fermented inoculants, fermented nutrients, and many, many other techniques that I won't sort of bore you with today. But the result of that is that we consistently see improved yields, but also much higher resilience to climatic and other shocks. We've dramatically reduced or eliminated the use for insecticides and fungicides. And recently we were doing a proprietary trial of a microalgae strain, which we treated for wheat. So the economic cost for that was extremely low. And I was just there at the farm a couple of days before getting here, and I was pleased as punch to see that we had a 2 tillers increase in the zones of the farm where that wheat was treated with that algae. And if we were to do this at scale across all the 17,000 acres or so where wheat is sown in Pakistan, is thought to be sown, we could create an economic value of $335 million as per today's price of wheat in the international market rights. So these are the biological sort of interventions that we can do that are very much in harmony with nature, that enhance our yields, enhance our nutritional profile, but also build resilience to climatic shocks, because algae have certain biostimulant properties which also provide higher resistance to drought and other biotic and abiotic stressors. And so that's something that's very hopeful. In Florida, there is a crisis of citrus greening that's put at enormous risk the multi-billion-dollar citrus industry in that country. And there are farmers who've had to destroy hundreds or thousands of acres of citrus orchards in that state of the United States. But there are farmers who've turned to regenerative agriculture, and they have been able to completely eliminate citrus greening from their farms. So citrus greening still shows up. The Harlong-Bing virus is still there when you do a soil test, but it is not impacting the plants because you have crafted a microbiome that has lots of the good guys, the good fungi, the good bacteria, the good protozoa, the good nematodes, and all of those keep the bad guys in check. So when you have enough good guys, you don't need, the bad guys cannot flourish. And I'll end with perhaps one example that I'm super bullish and passionate about. We're starting the Pakistan Alliance for Regenerative Agriculture, a non-profit, for which I urge everybody to join and join the cause and help. And one of the things I'm very passionate about doing with that is having tree and shrub plantations on the boundaries of farms. Because with that one step, if we do it at scale, we can perhaps transform agriculture in ways that are unfathomable. Now, there's a study out of the UK that shows that for every £1 we invest in a hedgerow, we get a £4 return. I think that is a massive underestimation. But some of the benefits that we get from that are, we have beneficial insect populations which take care of the bad guys, the pests, and therefore you don't need to use insecticides, right? And similarly, strategically planted hedgerows, they not just give you pollinators and beneficial insects, which is really important because we also have a biodiversity crisis along all over the world. It's called the 6th mass extinction, which we can also tackle on farmland. But also, you can plant trees that give you valuable nutrients. You can plant leguminous trees. You can plant trees like moringa, which are indigenous to this land, also called sohanjina, and you can create a biostimulant out of it, which also up-levels yields significantly, right? So the potential is enormous. We created a composted phosphatic fertilizer, which is one factor by 33%, right? And I haven't even talked about no-till because if I get in there, the economics are just insane. A 33% increase in yield in a side-by-side plot under a center pivot, growing Cortiva maize. Just the only differential was using a French no-till planter. And I understand that you're from France, so it's one of the best planters out there. And I'm not going to use the term that the Honorable Divana Saab used for the government policies because I'm still a young lad and I have to function function here, but what I will do is say that, you know, a much better utilization of that resources would be with no-till planters, because we can dramatically build soil carbon while enhancing yields with these incredible precision planters that lead to germination rates of over 99%. They plant the seed precisely at the depth and the seed-to-seed spacing that you need for optimal growth. So I'll end there because I could hog the mic for hours, but I hope that I've given you some hope and I've given you something good to think about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you did provide hope. So the next question is, you know, it's possible. So then how the government is helping, facilitating, you know, so that your knowledge pass on to 8 million families of farmers in Pakistan. And with that, Aisha Humaira, I'm very pleased to introduce Aisha Humaira, who is the Secretary of the Ministry of Climate Change and Environmental Coordination. Aisha, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and it's an honor and privilege to be with this august audience. I am here not just to share some of the points that I have jotted down, but basically to learn from all of you. I already knew some of the panelists, and it was a great pleasure to see them again, and I am really thrilled to listen to my previous speaker. And I'm very hopeful that Pakistan's agriculture future is very bright, because if we have such innovative farmers who are working with so much passion, I think this is one profession which really requires passion. If you are not doing it with lot of passion, it's not really possible to increase productivity under challenging circumstances. So I don't want to repeat the challenges that farmers face. Obviously, extreme weather events, monsoon variability, heat waves, and scarcity of water. All these challenges are there for the farmer. But what is research showing? Research is showing that yes, climate change will decrease productivity, but farmers who follow adaptation, they have the chance to increase their productivity 50 to 55%. In certain cases, it can go even further than that. So I think for Pakistan, climate change also provides an opportunity to rethink about our practices and make sure that farmers are following the adaptation practices, and through those practices they are able to increase their productivity. So some of the initiatives that government has taken is to promote smart farming. Government is encouraging drip irrigation and water conservation. Recently, a very good project has started in collaboration with development partners. It's called Recharge Pakistan. So as our dear panelist Afaq Saab was saying, that we must save water. So the objective of Recharge Water project is to preserve water, and it's creating wetlands and water recharge stations across Pakistan. In KPK, it will create a recharge station in DI Khan. In Sindh, it's in Manchar. In Balochistan, it's in Chakkar, Larry, and in Punjab, it's in Tausa and Ramak. So this is a very important project with $77 million. The progress, the work started few years ago, and now in collaboration with WWF, we have launched this project. And we hope that these 5 or 6 water recharge destinations will multiply, and we will have progressive farmers coming forward, learning from these practices, and will be part of the practices in the future in multiplying these wetlands and water recharge stations. So if you look at the total wetlands that Pakistan has created up till now in collaboration with the provinces, those are 225. And it covers 9.7% of the covered area of Pakistan. If we look at the forest area that we have in Pakistan, it's 5% of the total. And another important area which is extremely important for conservation is designation of protected areas. Why it's important to designate protected areas? Because you have to protect your biodiversity. You have to ensure that there are enough trees, there are sanctuaries which protect the local varieties. So we have exceeded the international requirement, and it's almost 20%. And UNEP recently appreciated Pakistan's work on protected areas. Another very important initiative that government has taken is the upscaling Green Pakistan, which the former minister also mentioned. The previous government started it, and 50 billion have been spent on that project. The project continues. Now there is an additional 70 billion allocated to that project, and it includes tree plantation and protection of the protected areas, wetlands, and ensuring biodiversity. So 2.3 billion trees have already been planted. It has really helped to increase Pakistan's green areas. Besides that, I would also like to inform you that there are a lot of new varieties have come out as a result of Pakistan's agriculture research system. There are 14 drought-resistant varieties which are now available in the market. There are 4 rice varieties which have shown increase in yield even if the water usage is less as compared to other varieties. Similarly, there is a rice variety which survives even if it's covered underwater for 14 days. So that will help farmers even in case of flood. So the research system is actually the backbone of agriculture. And up till now, if we look at the expenditure that governments make on research, although is not, I would say remarkable, it's 0.2% of the GDP, but we hope that it will, by 2030, it will increase to 1%. Similarly, Food Security Ministry in collaboration with the provincial agriculture departments is very well integrated with the research systems of FAO and CGIAR, and I think that is the strength that we have in Pakistan, that we are very well entrenched into the global research system. We are very closely linked with International Rice Research Institute, CIMMYT, where a lot of wheat varieties were developed. So I think we do have great strength in terms of our research systems. Participation of private sector recently has really enabled the system, and now more and more private sector is encouraged. A lot of innovation is coming here. Tech-based solutions are there. We have a lot of IT startups who are now helping the farming sector. They are looking at water conservation, the pesticide used in it. So that type of monitoring has also been very helpful to the farmer. Met department through their early warning system is also helping the farmer. Now 72 hours before the rain or any extreme weather, they can inform the farmer about those extreme events, and then farmers can take precautionary actions. So I think that's enough from my side.
Thank you very much, Aisha. So I want to introduce you, the last but not the least. She's a colleague of mine and a friend of mine. She's from the United Nations. She's the director, the country director of the International Financing IFAD, Fund for Agricultural Development. I don't even know the acronym, as we've been so used to use the acronym. Because why not the least? Because IFAD is working for the smallholder farmers, and I don't think we are representing them today. Let's be fair, in the panel, none of us, me included. So. And in Pakistan, 90% of the farmers have less than 5 hectares. So incentives, the incentives is a key thing for farmers, but sometimes when you are very poor, when you are very vulnerable, you cannot even respond to incentives. So I'll give the floor to Fernanda, who is going to speak about that. Thanks.
Thank you, Florence, and good afternoon to everyone. Dear panelists, it's a pleasure to be here in this panel. Well, I would like to take a step back and begin by highlighting the importance of agriculture in the Pakistan economy. So the sector contributes 23% of GDP, and in the rural areas, it employs about 80% of the workforce. And the smallholder farmers, they are precisely the backbone of the agricultural sector in Pakistan. They are contributing to national food security, and they are also contributing, they could do much more, but they are contributing to exports earnings. But yet, why it's so challenging when we speak about smallholder farmers? They are among the groups in the world that are mostly affected by the impacts of climate change. In Pakistan, as Florence just said, 90% of farmers, 7.4 million farmers are smallholder farmers, and they are cultivated in very small pieces of land. So when you speak about climate and smallholder farmers in Pakistan, the challenge is huge. As you all know by now, climate change really makes agriculture increasingly more uncertain. It threatens the natural resource base, it threatens the soil, the water, all the elements that smallholder farmers depend on to be able to produce. But why specifically then smallholder farmers are so vulnerable? Well, they have very few assets to fall back on, and they have very limited capacity to respond when there are climate shocks. In Pakistan, besides this very unequal land distribution that I just mentioned before, smallholder farmers, they face a lot of challenges. They mostly rely on rain-fed agriculture. They are mostly marginalized for markets. They rely on middlemen to sell their produce. They don't access improved seeds, improved inputs, technology, and financial service. They are basically cash constrained, meaning that they must sell their crops at harvest many times, and when pricing is very low. But then one could ask, okay, with all those challenges, you would expect that climate finance is really going to smallholder farmers. But no, surprisingly, the response is no. So climate finance currently is not serving smallholder farmers. So there's a figure that really surprised me. Only 0.8% of global climate finance goes to smallholder farmers. IFAD, as Florence said, no, we have two hats. We are an UN agency and also an international financial institution with this specific mandate to invest in smallholder farmers in the rural populations. So IFAD has been always advocated, and we should all do that, advocate for more climate finance for adaptation of smallholder farmers to the climate change. But then going to Florence's question now, how can we do that? How can we support smallholder farmers adapt to climate change? I think a very important area to look at, some of the panelists also mentioned that, is to support them to increase their productivity. Levels of productivity is very low in Pakistan currently, but precisely by implementing climate resilient practices. But this means access to knowledge. This means access to finance. this means access to technology. So we really need to really step up our efforts to promote high-value crops, climate-sensitive value chains, to promote green entrepreneurship, green technology, innovation. Just to give you an example, in one of our IFAD-funded projects in Gilgit-Baltistan, we are supporting smallholder farmers to adopt technology, tunnel farming, to be able to grow vegetables in very mountainous region of Gilgit-Baltistan during the whole year, meaning that they can then add to their nutrition of their households and also to increase their incomes. But then again, we really need to take collective action to be able to bring those incentives. One thing that's very important, we need to modernize also the agriculture sector to be able to attract the young population. You know, the youth, they don't want to do agriculture as their parents were doing. They don't want to have the same kind of labor burden, and they are very keen to adopt technology. They are very keen to adopt ICT, digital technologies, to adopt new solutions such as renewable energy, and then we should tap on that. Especially, I would say there are very promising opportunities to involve the youth in the agro-processing stage, in the packaging stage, in the food technology stage, so just to mention some of them. Okay, so now with this I spoke about agricultural production, the primary production, because we know that smallholder farmers, the highest climate risks they face is precisely in the production stage. But still, if you want to have climate interventions in value chains, we should look also at the pre-production and the post-production stage. So thinking about pre-production, now it's important to how to give smallholder farmers access to, as Secretary was mentioned today, to these drought-resistant, climate-resilient seed varieties. How to give them access to better inputs, to modern technology, to small machinery. One of the panelists also mentioned this challenge. Access to financial service. They should reach smallholder farmers, access to information service. Also, if you think about the post-production side, again, we should support smallholder farmers in being able to reduce food loss, which is very huge in Pakistan, to increase food safety, and this is an area that FAO has value chain. So thinking about post-harvesting management practices, thinking about new renewable energy source, thinking about green labeling, certification, those are all areas that we need to work on to be able to address the climate risks in the value chains. I wanted to highlight one strategy that IFAD is promoting in Pakistan that has been very successful, and I think we should do much more here, which is to, of course, it's not new, but I think it is to support smallholder farmers to organize into cooperatives. I came from my previous dissertation, I was based in Latin America, and in Latin America, smallholder farmers are pretty much organized around producers' organizations, around cooperatives. I see here in Pakistan, this is in a very incipient stage. I understand there are also historical reasons for that, but it's possible. In Gilgit-Baltistan, again, it's a project where we were able to support the formation of over 100 cooperatives from smallholder farmers. And then it's very important for these farmers to be able then, through these cooperatives, to increase the product quality, to be able to add value to their products, to be able to access financial service, access information service, and also connect to the private sector and the markets. The last area I would like to highlight is one of the panelists also mentioned, the agriculture water nexus. Pakistan is a very water-stressed country, but smallholder farmers, they really are the ones bearing most of the challenges. They rely on the rain for the water most of the case. So again, there are a lot of solutions to improve water use in agriculture, to make it more efficient, to make it more resilient. In IFAD, we are also promoting rainwater harvesting, water storage, irrigation channels. So this is a very key area to work. And then to conclude, I just want to then question is how can we then promote this paradigm shift, I would say, in smallholder farmer agriculture? Well, as I said in the beginning, expanding climate finance to agri-food systems and to smallholder farmers is very important. And to this, we need to bring together international financial institutions, national and commercial banks. We need to crowd in investments from the private sector, as we saw today. This is very neat. And finally, we need to have the right government policies in place to be able to support smallholder farmers to access markets and to invest in the public goods such as infrastructure, roads, warehouse, information systems, and agricultural extension. So in a nutshell, and to conclude, I would say resource policies and partnerships are central to our efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fernanda. So I'm just told that we have 5 to 10 minutes more, so I would like to ask 2 questions. One is to a former government minister. What would you have done differently? And the second question is to the farmers. We heard about incentive is key. If you were in the shoes of the government, what would you do? Can I? So,
thank you very much. But if you ask me what would I have done differently, I think invested more in private sector. I think the chasm between the public sector and the private sector is extremely wide, and it is usually not bridged. And as you can see from the panel over here, the hope is coming from the private sector, because the private sector is leading where the government is lacking. So I think that's a bridge that governments need to cross, and they need to create the facilitative environment for that to happen. And if that happens, then you have a solution out there.
And to answer your other question, what would I do if I were lucky enough to wake up in the corridors of power? I would use the financing powers of the government. There are so many, especially, firstly, I'd want to be in the provincial government because that's where the money is. And when you have the moolah, how do you deploy it, right? And again, going back to what the Honorable Tawana Saab said, you have to be very strategic. So one of the things I'd want to use it on is creating service-based models where farmers are served with technologies that are regenerative and soil building, such as no-till planters, harvesters for rice, straw, those types of strategic investments. And then the other thing I would do is completely overhaul the extension service. I go all Doge and Elon Musk on them, and but replace them with people who can actually get the job done, because this is a knowledge-based paradigm thing. And as the honorable speaker from IFAD mentioned, yes, there's financing is one pillar, there's technology, that's another, but the third pillar is a knowledge-based system. So the lowest hanging fruit in all of this that requires the least amount of money is transferring knowledge. And there are things that farmers can do on farmlands that are transformational, that don't require ginormous amounts of capital, right? It can be done in a very frugal and economically efficient way, but that's not possible until you accelerate the knowledge-giving paradigm, right?
Very clear. So Kazim, up to you to conclude.
Well, I think with such an august panel, the hope and the ambition that we've heard, I think agriculture is a sector where it's been there for millennia. A lot of the talk we heard in the last 2 days makes you feel like we are nearing the end of time, end of the world. Really, it's more like when we began, the beginning of time, when the horses started learning how to gallop and the butterflies first flapped their wings, and human beings started doing cotton first. And I tell you, that happened in this land. The earliest that archaeologists and anthropologists date cotton cultivation is at the ruins of Mehergarh, near the town of Sibbi in Balochistan. And we have seen, this region has seen civilizations getting wiped out. and there's something to learn there. Now, because of that vast, stroke of the arc of history that climate change reminds us of, I think it's important to look at the wisdom we have received from the speakers at this panel. And Malik Amin Saab talked about how you have to be humble and make peace with nature. That there's wisdom there. Afaq Tiwana Saab talked about the build-up of the agriculture sector and how it's reached a point where he was very euphemistic, saying it's unwell. I would say that the systems built over many decades ago, they reached in agriculture sector, they reached their goals some decades ago. Then they started dysfunction, then deterioration. Now they're bankrupt. And in this country, this is a moment of hope because we are seeing some of those systems from 75 years ago or 150 years ago now making way for a new era in agriculture. And the government deciding not to purchase wheat and store it, etc. First time in 60 years, it opens up an opportunity for the private sector to come in and for a new way in the agriculture sector. I think what Taimur mentioned about the soil being something that's a store of water, that's something that a lot of people, including farmers, may not value as much as they should. It reminds you of how Rumi, the wisdom from Rumi, Hamanja ki rasad dard, Hamanjas tava. Where the pain emerges is where the medicine is. I think he foretold the COVID-19 vaccine. And we have the irrigation system to fix, to make sure that water is used right. We have the soil to improve the carbon content in, to make sure that we are able to get more productivity. And I think we heard from Secretary Saiba about new varieties and how the productivity gains from adaptation can actually put farmers ahead. But we cannot forget about access to finance. I think Aisha was very passionate about bringing that in. The focus on smallholder farmers, lastly, I think I'm glad that Fernanda mentioned it. We have many solutions for smallholder farmers. Like I mentioned, crop insurance, but the role of government is critical. Where out of 104 countries in the world that have crop insurance schemes, I think 86, including developed countries, have subsidies for insurance premium for farmers, small farmers, and including Pakistan has a bit of that. So there is, I think, hope and a great deal of ambition that this panel is bringing to the table. I think that's where I'll stop. Thank you very much. And a round of applause for our panelists, please.